Hi everyone, welcome to TechCravers. Today we're checking out the new Abxylute S8, a telescopic controller that's designed to turn your phone, tablet, or even the Nintendo Switch 2 into a proper handheld console. Okay, maybe the Nintendo Switch 2 doesn't need any help on that, but it's always nice to have alternatives. I've been spending a good chunk of time with it lately, testing it across different devices and games, and I got quite a lot to say. So grab a coffee, sit back, and let's dive into whether this little gadget is worth your time and money. My first impressions of the S8 is that it's lightweight, just 256 grams, which makes a big difference if you're attaching it to something that's already heavy, like a Switch or a large phone. It feels solid in my hands, not flimsy, and the grips are comfortable enough for longer gaming sessions. The telescopic design means it stretches out to 216mm, which is actually quite a lot. That allows you to fit not only bigger phones, but even some tablets. The clamping mechanism feels secure, and once your device is in, it doesn't wobble around or feel loose, which is really important for gaming on the go. Moving on to the controls, which of course are the most important part of any controller. The A, B, X and Y buttons feel clicky and responsive, just the way you'd expect from a decent gamepad. They're not mushy and they won't bottom out too easily, which makes them perfect for fast-paced action games. And the D-pad is accurate, but it's on the stiffer side. Personally, I would have liked a little less resistance, but it's definitely usable for platformers and retro games. And the cool part is that it's swappable. You can go with the classic cross design or a disc-shaped D-pad, depending on what you prefer. The triggers are full Hall effect, which means they're smooth, precise and won't wear out as quickly as traditional triggers. Shoulder buttons feel clicky and satisfying as well. Pair that with the Hall effect analog sticks and you got a solid set of controls that punch well above the price tag. Speaking of the price, this is where the Abxylute S8 really stands out. You can grab it for around $55 straight from Abxylute's official website. That's not pocket change, but compared to something like the Backbone or Razer Kishi, which often costs well over $100, it's less than half the price. What's impressive is how much you're getting here for the cost. Hall effect sticks and triggers, swappable D-pad, full gyro support, vibration, a polished companion app and compatibility with pretty much every platform you'd ever want to game on. Usually at this budget you expect compromises, but the S8 feels like a controller that belongs in the higher tier. So if you're someone who wants to try out mobile or handheld gaming without spending big, or maybe you just need a reliable backup controller, the price to performance ratio here is honestly fantastic. One of the cool things about the Abxylute S8 is that you can swap the input into different modes, kind of like changing costumes, depending on what you're playing on. If you want to stream Xbox games through Game Pass or use apps like Moonlight or Steam Link, you can put it into Xbox mode so the games recognize it properly. If you're playing on something like a Nintendo Switch 2, you can flip it into Nintendo mode and all the buttons will line up the way they should. And if you're using PlayStation Remote Play, then you can switch it into PlayStation mode. There's even more general mode that works a bit like Universal Remote for other devices. And here's the fun part. For games that don't support controllers at all, you can use something called virtual mapping. It's kind of like placing stickers on your touchscreen where the controls would be, and then linking those stickers to the real buttons on the control. So when you press a button on the S8, it's like you're pressing the screen in that exact spot. It takes a couple of minutes to set up, but once you've done it, it's really easy and feels pretty magical. And of course you can play all your emulators with this controller as well. As long as you paired it with your phone or tablet, it'll show up in the emulator's controller settings like any normal gamepad would. No tricky setup or extra steps. Here for example I'm playing Mario Golf Toadstool Tour for the Nintendo GameCube through the Dolphin emulator, and the S8 handles it beautifully. The buttons respond instantly and sticks feels accurate, and it honestly feels like I'm playing on original hardware, just in a portable form. And that's really where a controller like this shines. It lets you bring all your retro favorites to life in a way that feels modern and comfortable. The S8 comes with a handful of features you might not expect at this price, and each of them adds something useful to the gaming experience. For example, it has 6-axis gyro support, which means the controller can sense movements. Kind of like Joy-Cons on the Switch. In racing games you can tilt the controller to steer, and in shooters you can fine-tune your aim by moving the controller itself. It's surprisingly responsive and can give you that little edge when precision really matters. And then there's Turbo Mode. If you're playing games that require rapid button presses, maybe old school beat 'em ups, or even just grinding in something like an RPG, Turbo Mode saves your thumbs from a workout. You hold the button and the controller taps it for you super fast. It feels like cheating in the best way possible. The S8 also lets you adjust the vibration's intensity with a quick button combo. This might sound small, but it's actually pretty handy. Some games really overdo the rumble, which can get annoying, especially in handheld play. Being able to turn it down or crank it up if you like the extra feedback gives you control over how immersive you want things to feel. And then of course the Hall effect sticks and triggers. This tech basically means no drift and much longer lifespan. If you ever had a controller that starts pulling your character to the left for no reason, you'll know why this matters. It's a feature I normally expect from much more expensive controllers, so seeing it here is a big win. All of this ties into the Abxylute app, which is available on iOS and Android, and it's not just a launcher. The app lets you remap buttons to suit your playstyle, adjust the dead zones on the sticks and triggers, set up macros if you want to automate combos, and tweak gyro sensitivity. You can even update the firmware directly from the app, which means the controller can actually get better over time. And for a budget device, that level of customization is pretty rare, and it makes the S8 feels way more polished than you'd expect. Now, before we wrap things up, I do want to point out a few small downsides. The D-pad, while accurate, is a bit too stiff for my taste. It's totally usable, but if you're into fighting games or really precision-heavy retro titles, you might notice that you have to press a little harder than you'd like. The second thing is that the controller is Bluetooth only. That means no wired game through USB-C. For most people, that's not a deal breaker, but if you're extremely sensitive to input lag, it's something worth keeping in mind. And because it doesn't connect through USB-C for data, it also won't charge your device while you're plugged in. So if you're gaming on a phone with low battery, you have to keep an eye on that. And lastly, while the Abxylute app is surprisingly polished overall, a couple of features like calibration still aren't fully fleshed out yet. It's not a huge issue, but worth mentioning in case you were planning on fine-tuning every little detail. But honestly, that's about it for complaints. None of these are major deal breakers, and considering the price and everything else the S8 offers, they feel more like nitpicks than serious flaws. Because when you look at the bigger picture, the Abxylute S8 is offering a ton of value for around $55. You're getting a lightweight and comfortable design, Hall effect sticks and triggers, swappable D-pad options, strong platform compatibility, and a companion app that lets you customize way more than you'd expect at this price point. It feels solid, it plays great, and it managed to stay affordable, which makes it one of the easiest telescopic controllers to recommend in 2025. If you're looking to level up your mobile gaming, dive into emulation, or even prep for your Nintendo Switch 2 without spending backbone money, this should definitely be on your radar. Of course, I will leave a link to where you can buy it in the video description. And that's my take on the Abxylute S8, but what do you think? Is this a controller you'd add to your setup, or are you sticking with something else? Let me know down in the comments. I always love hearing your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.